Most people spend their lives waiting to be chosen, waiting to be loved, waiting to be seen, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally say, "You matter." But here's the truth. You were never meant to wait for permission to be valuable. The sickness of the modern soul is this: we chase validation like oxygen, forgetting that true value does not chase. It does not shout. It does not beg. It simply is. The moment you realize your worth doesn't need external confirmation, you stop auditioning for spaces that weren't built for you. You stop shrinking in rooms just to make others feel comfortable. You stop offering discounts on your soul just to be liked. Because if you treat yourself like a clearance item, don't be surprised when others skip the price tag. You are not here to be an option. You are here to be the standard. And standards are not argued for. They are lived. The world taught you to prove your worth. But Jung would tell you, you don't need to prove what already is. Gold doesn't explain itself. Diamonds don't knock on doors to be accepted. Your presence, when rooted in self-awareness, becomes its own statement. You don't become a luxury by being louder. You become a luxury by being real, unshakable, uncompromising, rooted in your own knowing. So here's your invitation. Stop being the echo. Start being the origin. Stop hoping they'll see you. Start seeing yourself, because when you stop being the option, you become unforgettable. Luxury doesn't shout, it doesn't explain, it doesn't chase. It simply exists, calm, confident, and whole within itself. That's what inner rarity looks like. You don't become valuable by performing for attention. You become valuable when you stop editing your essence to be accepted, when you stop hiding the depth of your silence, the sharpness of your mind, the weight of your standards, and you begin to embody them without apology. You were not born to be palatable. You were born to be true. People won't always understand your stillness, your boundaries, your unwillingness to play small, and that's exactly the point. Rarity is not meant to be widely understood. It is meant to be recognized only by those with the capacity to appreciate it. The more you water yourself down to be digestible, the more you teach the world that your full self is too much. But your too much is exactly what makes you rare. So instead of asking, "What must I become so they choose me?" ask this: "What must I remember so I stop needing to be chosen at all?" Remember this: true luxury does not audition, it is. When you walk into a room knowing your worth is not up for debate, something shifts. People notice, not because you demand attention, but because your energy no longer requires their approval to exist. That kind of presence can't be faked. It's the quiet power of someone who knows their value, who no longer explains their standards, who no longer bends in the name of being liked. And yes, it might feel lonely at first. You'll lose people who only ever loved the version of you that needed them. Let them go, because when you stop being available to those who treat you like a backup plan, you make room for those who see you as a masterpiece, unfinished perhaps, but undeniable. Inner rarity means you stop negotiating your self-worth. You stop proving, you stop shrinking. You walk like your presence is a gift because it is. You become the kind of person whose absence is felt more than others' presence. And you do it without noise, without desperation, without needing to be anything other than exactly who you are. That is the essence of rarity. That is the beginning of becoming a luxury. You were not born to beg for love. You were not meant to chase attention just to feel seen. And yet somewhere along the way, you began confusing validation with value. That is the trap. To believe that if someone claps for you, you matter. And if they don't, you disappear. But real self-worth doesn't waver with applause. It doesn't rise with their approval or fall with their silence. It stands still, untouched, even in the quiet. This is where strategic detachment begins. It's not coldness, it's not indifference, it's clarity. It's reclaiming the power you gave away to other people's opinions. Because the moment you make someone else responsible for how you feel about yourself, you hand them the ability to break you. If their yes defines you, their no will destroy you. And that is emotional slavery wrapped in the costume of love. Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop folding. You can love someone and still walk away. You can care deeply and still choose silence over self-sacrifice. Strategic detachment means you stop leaking energy in every direction. You become intentional, grounded, rooted in your own truth. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about no longer needing to be chosen to feel worthy. When you detach, people get confused. They can't provoke you. They can't guilt you. They can't bait you into proving your worth anymore. And in that stillness, they begin to feel your absence, and not as distance, but as strength. Because people always sense when they've lost access to something rare. And nothing is rarer than a person who can walk away from what wounds them without bitterness, without explanation, without hesitation. The one who validates themselves doesn't flinch in silence. They don't beg under pressure. They don't lower their standards just to be included. They are not loud, but they are unforgettable. So when the need for validation rises inside you, pause and remember, you are not here to prove. You are here to be. You don't need to be understood by everyone. You only need to stop betraying yourself for the ones who never deserved you. That is the power of detachment. Just before we continue, let's take a brief moment. If something in these words feels uncomfortably familiar, it's not just you. Many are walking through the same silence, learning the same hard truths. If you're finding pieces of yourself here, consider subscribing. Not to follow, but to remember. And if someone you know keeps giving too much just to be seen, share this with them. Sometimes hearing the right thing at the right time is everything. Most people spend their lives performing, curating smiles, scripting words, and shaping themselves to be more likable, all in hopes of being accepted. But true presence doesn't come from performance. It comes from substance. It's not in how loud you are, but in how still you can be. Not in how visible you make yourself, but in how deeply you know yourself when no one is watching. Self-respect is not a decoration. It's not something you put on when the world is looking. It's a quiet force rooted in how you speak to yourself when the room goes silent. And this is where most people lose their power. They chase aesthetics. They polish the surface. But they forget to build the core. You can wear elegance, but if your soul is starving for validation, people will feel the gap. They always do, because energy doesn't lie. When you carry true self-respect, it shows up long before you say a word. It's in the way you hold your silence, the way you don't flinch when overlooked, the way you don't shrink when someone fails to understand you. You no longer fear being misunderstood because you're no longer performing for approval. Respect doesn't come from being seen everywhere. It comes from being missed, from being felt when you're gone, not just noticed when you're there. And that kind of presence, it can't be faked. It doesn't come from likes, followers, or applause. It comes from the parts of you fought for, the parts you healed in private, the standards you upheld when no one was clapping. So many people become mirrors, reflecting back what others want to see. But mirrors are only useful until the person finds their own reflection and walks away. You weren't born to be a mirror. You were born to be a flame, a quiet, unwavering fire that does not beg to be seen, but changes the room simply by existing. Self-respect is not arrogance, it's not superiority. It's the refusal to negotiate your worth in spaces that cannot see you. And when you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you become unforgettable to the few who matter. That's the shift. You go from being available to anyone to being aligned with yourself, from being easy to reach to being deeply felt. Respect doesn't follow performance, it follows presence, and presence only happens when you stop proving and start being. So stop decorating the shell, start cultivating the core, because what makes you rare isn't how you shine, it's how deeply you're anchored when the lights go out. In a world addicted to noise, true presence feels like a disruption. Not because it's loud, but because it's anchored. Most people react. They flinch when ignored. They beg when dismissed. They spiral when they feel unseen. But emotional chaos doesn't impress anyone. It's predictable, and what's predictable becomes forgettable. Power isn't in the reaction. It's in the restraint. It's in the ability to feel everything and still choose how you show up. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to chase to be valued. You need to stop leaking your energy everywhere. People respect mystery, not because you're hiding, but because you're no longer offering your essence freely to anyone who looks interested. You want to command a room? Walk in without explaining yourself. Speak without over-clarifying. Respond without rushing to fix how others feel about you. That's power. It's not cold. It's centered. It's not indifference. It's intentional. When you carry this kind of energy, people start wondering what you're thinking. They lean in. They second-guess themselves. Not because you're playing games, but because they realize they can't play you. People know when they can't emotionally bait you. They sense when their silence won't shake you. And in that space, they either rise to meet your energy or they fall away. And that's exactly what's supposed to happen. When your emotions run you, anyone can control you. They can trigger you with absence, punish you with silence, manipulate you with attention. But when you master your response, when you can feel everything and still hold your ground, you become untouchable. That's the kind of energy people remember, the kind that shifts the air without raising a voice. You don't command attention by asking for it. You command it by carrying yourself like you're not waiting for anyone's permission. No one respects what is emotionally unstable, but everyone notices what is emotionally unwavering. So breathe, hold your center, and let your silence say what words never could. There comes a moment when staying costs more than leaving, not in comfort but in dignity. You've stayed in conversations that loop endlessly. You've stayed in relationships that drain you, in roles that shrink you, in dynamics where your presence was tolerated, but never treasured. Why? Because walking away felt like failure, because silence felt like rejection, because leaving meant being alone, and that scared you more than being unseen. But here's the truth. You cannot teach someone to value you while letting them devalue you. Every time you return too soon, after being dismissed, disrespected, or forgotten, you don't heal the connection. You confirm the disrespect. People learn how to treat you by watching what you tolerate. If you want to be seen as irreplaceable, you must become unavailable to what belittles your worth. This is not about anger. It's not about proving a point. It's about reclaiming your peace. Your absence should speak louder than all the times you explained yourself, because silence has a power that noise never will. Walking away isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's recognizing when something has reached its expiration, when your energy is no longer nourished but drained. There's strength in saying, I love you, but I love myself more. There's clarity in deciding, I wanted this to work, but I won't abandon my soul to make it happen. And yes, it will be uncomfortable, it will sting. Because detachment isn't numbness, it's choosing self-respect over familiar pain. But that space you create by stepping away isn't empty, it's sacred. It's the return of your power. It's where your identity begins to rebuild, not from desperation, but from grounded truth. And the ones who never respected your boundaries, let them wonder. Let them feel your absence. Let them confront the silence they once thought was your weakness. Because when you walk away without fear, you become unforgettable. Not because you were loud, but because you stopped showing up where you were only partially received. You were not born to beg for peace, you were born to embody it. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. You were raised to believe that pleasing is love. Be agreeable, be helpful, be easy to be around, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be chosen. So you did. You smiled when it hurt. You agreed when you disagreed. You gave more, even when your soul whispered, enough. And what did it bring you? Temporary approval, conditional connection, moments of closeness that vanished the second you stopped performing. Here's what they never told you. Pleasing others is not the same as honoring yourself. And any connection that requires your self-abandonment was never real to begin with. You became a chameleon, changing shape to fit the room. But in the process, you disappeared. You forgot how to be still in your own truth. You forgot the sound of your own boundaries, but now you're waking up. You are learning that real presence doesn't come from being palatable. It comes from being true. It's in the way you don't over-explain. It's in how you sit quietly in your value without asking for applause. Because the people who need you to shrink so they can stay were never meant to stay. And yes, when you stop pleasing, people will leave. Let them. Let the ones who are only drawn to your silence fall away when they hear your voice. Let the ones who fed off your overgiving lose interest when you begin to keep some of that love for yourself. Their discomfort is not your cue to retreat. It's confirmation that your peace has become too expensive for those still shopping for bargains. This is self-honor. It is not loud, it is not flashy, it is calm, rooted, unshakable. You say no without guilt. You walk away without explanation. You sit with your own company without the ache to be seen. This is how your energy changes, not by trying to impress, but by choosing peace over performance, again and again. You stop being accessible to chaos. You stop offering your time to people who only knock when they're empty. You stop chasing conversations that circle but never connect. Because you realize your presence is not free. It is earned through respect, through truth, through reciprocity. When you stop pleasing, you become magnetic. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped trying at all. You stopped chasing and started becoming. The ones who can rise to meet you will. The ones who can't, won't. And that clarity is the gift you've been waiting for. So let your stillness speak. Let your absence echo. Let your peace become the standard that filters every relationship. You don't need to please to be loved. You need only to be, and to never again betray yourself just to feel temporarily accepted. Hold on, we're not done yet, but this is worth saying now. If this feels like more than a motivational video, if it's reflecting a truth you've been avoiding, it's because it probably is. Growth doesn't wait for perfect timing. neither should you. Subscribe if you're ready to keep walking this path with us. And if someone in your life needs to hear this today, don't hesitate. Share it forward. Real alignment happens one person at a time. People often ask, how do I make them see my worth? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, how do I start treating myself like I already know it? Because the moment you do, everything shifts. This is the power of quiet standards. Not shouted, not explained, simply lived. You begin to show the world how to treat you by refusing to stay where your value is dismissed. You stop negotiating your needs. You stop shrinking for approval. You stop explaining your worth to those determined not to see it. Because you understand this, you are not here to audition. You are the prize. You are the room, not the applicant. And when you carry yourself like a standard, people begin to treat you like one. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. The inner clarity that says, my peace is not up for grabs, my time is not for the undecided, my energy is not available to chaos. Your standards aren't conditions. They're reflections of how deeply you've come to respect yourself. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't bend until you break just to be liked. Instead, you become consistent in your presence, selective with your energy, anchored in your boundaries, and yes, this will intimidate people, especially those who benefited from the version of you who tolerated too much. Let them feel the shift. You are not hard to love. You are just too soft with those who never learned to handle something real. So raise the bar. Stop lowering yourself to meet others halfway when they're not even walking towards you. You don't rise by being nice, you rise by being real. And that means choosing your truth, even when it costs you approval. That means saying no, even when silence feels safer. That means walking away, even when your heart wants to stay. Your standards are sacred. They are how the world learns what is and is not acceptable in your presence. And the ones meant for you, they won't ask you to explain them. They'll rise to meet them. Because real ones don't need you to be small to feel big. They see your strength and stand beside it. So cultivate your standard not by shouting louder, but by standing quieter, with more self-respect than ever before. There's a quiet kind of power that doesn't come from talking more, but from needing to say less. You don't need to explain your worth when it's written in your energy. You don't need to chase attention when your presence carries weight. People feel it. In how you walk into a room, in how you hold yourself when no one's watching, in how you don't flinch when silence stretches out. The louder you get trying to prove you matter, the more the world treats you like noise. But when you become grounded, still up, your words begin to land like thunder, few, precise, unmistakable. This is not about being passive, it's about speaking with intention. It's about replacing performance with presence. You don't need to argue your value. You don't need to broadcast your pain or decorate your essence. Your truth, when rooted, speaks for itself, and the ones meant to hear it will. Because here's the truth. People don't respect volume, they respect substance, and substance doesn't clamor to be seen, it simply radiates. The most magnetic people are not the loudest, they are the most anchored, the ones who know who they are when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, when there's no audience to impress. So speak when it matters, move when it's time, and never explain your worth to those who only understand noise. Let your calm speak louder than their chaos. Let your boundaries whisper where words once begged. Let your absence say what your over-explaining never could. Because stillness, when it's true, reverberates louder than 1,000 shouted truths. When you stop performing, you start commanding. And when you speak less but mean more, the right ones lean in and the wrong ones quietly fade away. You don't rise by being liked. You rise by being true. You don't become a luxury by being available to everyone. You become one by choosing alignment over acceptance. And sometimes that means letting people go, even if a part of you still wants to hold on. Because here's the hard truth. If you have to beg to be seen, you're already in the wrong room. If you have to explain your worth, you're already speaking to those who have no intention of understanding it. Letting go is not loss, it's clarity. You stop trying to convince someone to value what they never intended to honor. You stop waiting for apologies from people who can't even admit they saw your worth and still walked away. And when you let go of what doesn't serve you, you create space for peace, for alignment, for the kind of presence that doesn't tolerate confusion. This isn't bitterness, it's liberation. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. To choose your energy, your peace, your standard. And every time you say no to something that feels small, you say yes to your evolution. Let them walk away. Let them misunderstand your silence. Let them think you've changed, because you have. You've stopped making yourself easy to reach for people who only show up when it's convenient. You've stopped handing out pieces of yourself to those who treat them like spare change. You are not an option. You are a standard. And that standard is non-negotiable. Yes, the space they leave behind might feel empty at first, but that emptiness is sacred. It's a clearing, a signal to the universe that you're done accepting crumbs. And in that space, the right people come, the ones who don't just want access to you, but respect the cost of entry. So let the wrong ones go, not in anger, but in gratitude. They taught you what you will no longer accept. They reminded you of what you deserve, and now it's time to rise. You were never meant to beg for your place. You were not born to campaign for respect, to audition for love, to earn your worth with endless effort and soft apologies. You are the standard, but only when you decide to be. The shift doesn't begin when they see you. It begins the moment you see yourself, clearly, boldly, unapologetically. You stop shrinking in rooms just to be tolerated. You stop entertaining people who confuse your kindness with availability. You stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. And you rise, not loudly, not with drama, but with presence, with stillness, with the kind of quiet that makes people pause, because something about you feels rare. That's not arrogance, that's alignment, because when you finally understand that your time is sacred, your energy is a privilege, your peace is a boundary, you stop negotiating, you stop offering discounts, you stop returning to places that made you doubt yourself. You become unavailable to chaos, to inconsistency, to half love and half effort. And in that unavailability, you become magnetic. The right ones lean in, the wrong ones fall away. And both outcomes are gifts, because value doesn't ask to be seen, it knows it already is. So if you've been waiting for someone to choose you, for the world to recognize you, for the respect you've always deserved, let this be the end of that wait. You don't need to be chosen, you need to choose yourself so powerfully that your presence becomes a mirror, showing others what it looks like to stand in truth. Let this be your call to rise. Not for applause, not for followers, not for approval, but for the only thing that matters. To become someone who finally walks like they remember they were never ordinary to begin with. We're only halfway there, but if you're still here, it means something's shifting. You don't need loud answers, just honest ones. Subscribe if you want more than noise. We're building a space for clarity, not crowd approval. And if this message reminds you of someone giving too much for too little, let them hear this too. Sometimes truth only needs one voice to echo.